Welcome to our LB's The Lover of Books author chat. If this is your first time here, live or watching the recording, I'm so glad you found us. I've had the honor to interview over 75 debut to best-selling authors, and readers like you have helped my YouTube channel, LB The Lover of Books, grow to amass over 21,000 hours. It's been awesome, an awesome adventure with all of you. So I really appreciate you taking that time to like it and comment because it really does help readers find this content. But now I want to introduce this talented author who lives in Rowton, Connecticut. Hopefully I got that right. With her husband, two boys, and Dash, their Aussie Shepherd. Georgia Hunter has always wanted to write, from penning her first novel at age 4 to pitching an environmental opinion piece to her local newspaper at 11. She has articles published in the New York Times Book Review and other travel magazines. She also does some freelance copywriting. Her first book, which I'm sure you've heard of, We Are the Lucky Ones, was inspired by a family reunion in 2000 that opened her eyes to the astounding, untold wartime stories of her grandfather, his parents, and his siblings. So in 2008, she started researching and recording her ancestry, and a decade later, We Were the Lucky Ones was born. This book has been published in, get this, 20 languages and has landed in the hands of over 1 million readers. It's also been adapted by Hulu into a limited series, so it's definitely a must-watch if you haven't seen it already. But we are here to talk about her next book, One Good Thing. It's a historical novel set in the Holocaust era, Italy. It's told from the perspective of a young woman forced to trust her inner strength as she navigates a world turned upside down. One Good Thing is a coming-of-age story of friendship, motherhood, romance, and survival. And we're going to be talking about all of this. And Georgia, just so you know, we have assumed that everyone here has read it or they don't care about spoilers. So
Great.
feel free to just let it all go. We're so excited you're here. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Laura Beth, for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here. And thank you all for joining. I love seeing where everybody's from. We have a whole diverse group here across the country. It's awesome.
So these are the best readers. I find that readers are just the best people. So we're in great company. I want to go ahead and start it off because I know in your comment in the book, in your author's note, you talked about that transition from your debut to this book, and you had a sit down meeting. Can you kind of talk about how that went and that seed and what that push and drive looked like for you?
Yeah, no, We Were the Lucky Ones really was born out of a curiosity and a passion project for unearthing my family history. I didn't know as a child growing up that I came from a family of Holocaust survivors. I discovered that at 15, thanks to a high school English assignment where I was asked to interview a family member, and sat down with my grandmother, Caroline, and started hearing the story of how my grandfather survived. And then later at a family reunion, started hearing more stories about his siblings, and my curiosity was piqued. And so I truly went into that as the granddaughter and sort of the family historian. And it turned into something I never could have imagined. Here we are talking about it as 1 million readers and a Hulu series. So it's been life-changing, that process, both the unearthing of and recording of, and just the learning about that piece of my ancestry was absolutely kind of changed my DNA in a way. And so when my editor at Penguin called, she gave me a little bit of breathing room. When the book came out, that came out in 2017, and literally like 5 days after my book tour, my second son was born. So she gave me a little bit of time to put my feet up. He was very early too, by the way. I thought I was going to have more time to put my feet up, but I didn't. So she gave me some space and then called and said, well, what's next? And I truly hadn't thought of myself yet as like an author. I just, I hadn't thought about what was next. I really hadn't. And so I really had to take my time and think hard about where I wanted to spend, a lot that headspace and that heart space. Because one thing I learned with We Were the Lucky Ones is, and as an author, you put everything into this. Like you're just, it's your world for years and years as you research and as you write. And then if you're lucky enough to be talking about it afterwards, it lives on for years afterwards. So yeah, it was a very sort of pivotal moment being asked and then having to think about it. And I landed on Italy for a setting for a couple of reasons. I remember having I don't know if you were referring to a sit down meeting with my agent where we kind of sat and hashed out some ideas, my agent and now dear, dear friend, Brittany Bloom. And I said, I keep coming back to Italy, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, I felt like the story of Italy's Holocaust was lesser known. My family was from Poland, and I feel like we all learn a bit. I mean, used to, maybe not today, which is a whole nother story, another conversation, but we learn about the Holocaust and we learn about Eastern Europe and what was happening there. I personally didn't remember learning much about Italy and what was happening. I knew the name Mussolini, of course, but I thought it could be really interesting to try to tell the story of Italy's Holocaust through the eyes of an ordinary young woman, and tell it as a story of, the backstory is what was happening, and kind of lean into friendship and motherhood and survival and all those themes that you mentioned. But I also chose Italy because it's the place where my parents met. They were living there in late 60s, early 70s, and I actually think my mom might even be on this Zoom. Hi, Mom, if you're listening and watching. um, so both expats, Americans living there, they met there through the expat community and stayed for a combined 17 years. So I was born back in the States, but I grew up hearing stories of what it was like to live in Italy. They lived in Rome. They ran a little restaurant in a little town between Rome and Naples called Sperlanga in the summertime. So I heard about the food and the culture and the people, and I just had this very sort of romantic idea of life in Italy. And then I was an only child and so lucky to get to travel with them, and they brought me to Italy many, many times. I spent my semester abroad in Italy and Rome, and I have a bucket list a mile long, but it's one of those places I just keep going back to over and over again. So it was sort of a no-brainer that that would be my setting.
Okay. You mentioned your mom's on this call. Hi, mom.
Her
Uh,
name is Isabel Hunter, if you see
Hi,
her there.
Isabel.
Wave.
I was going to bring you on for a second. Are you okay if I spotlight you for a second? All right. So,
Come join us.
hi.
Yay.
So glad you're joining us. Okay. I heard her say restaurant. Is this where the carbonara recipe love comes from? And if so, are you willing to share it? Because that's what I am keeping from this novel. I need it.
Yes, I am willing to share it, but I don't want to take up the time on this interview.
No,
If she,
you should share it. Share
well,
the little sneaky, you know, the twist that you give it.
So everybody has a good recipe for carbonara, and that's not too hard to find. But the quirky thing that my husband and I learned at this little hole in the wall restaurant in Rome that we used to go to and sit at outdoor tables and drink wine out of jelly jars, is that they would separate the eggs and beat the egg white separately. So they'd make the carbonara with the egg yolk and then dump the egg white on top. So it was, and then you'd sort of mix it together at the table. So that was the one secret.
well, I'm going to get Georgia to send us, if you don't mind, send us the recipe and I will share it out to the group because I feel like book clubs need this for their main dish when discussing this.
Yes.
I know a lot of people on here were saying they were going to nominate this book for book club. So thank you so much. Isabel, did you have anything else you wanted to share before you hide out again?
No, I'm curious to see what questions people might have. And yeah, it was doing the research and being a small part of that with Georgia was really fun and rewarding, and really digging deep into what was going on in Italy at that time, and even taking a trip there to sort of follow in the protagonist's footsteps was
See
fabulous.
that. Y'all got to do this journey together, this adventure. What did that mean for you, Georgia, to be able to do that with your mom and follow
Oh,
these
oh, it
paths?
was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, we rented a little car, a Fiat, and just drove the whole route that Lily takes. And
Who
so
drove, by the way? Who's the
we took turns, but
Okay, okay.
I would say it was pretty even. I think I let you drive a CC though. That was probably the most terrifying. We have a bit, it was so scary. I recorded it because I was like, this may not end well. And I want to capture this on film. No, it was really beautiful to be there. And in the place, you know, where the reason why I'm here is my parents met there, and we especially loved, or I especially loved being in Rome with you, Mom, because you know the city so well, you know it inside out, and all her favorite old cafes and our favorite restaurant on Piazza Farnese. And we, you know, my dad passed, but we raised a glass to him, and we even brought some of his ashes and spread his ashes while we were there. So it was a really beautiful, I don't know, just incredibly. The research part was amazing. I got so many sensory details in every place that we went. I had kind of unearthed the history at that point, but I really just wanted to walk in Lily's footsteps and, you know, look at the stones underfoot and smell the smells and listen to the bells ringing or whatever the sounds were in each of the places. And so having my mom there as my wing woman, and we could just kind of bounce ideas. And we definitely ate a whole lot better than Lily and Esty ate in the books. We felt a little guilty about that, but it was
What a
lovely.
wonderful experience to have with your mom. And that will be forever a part of this book because it was part of those foundation blocks to get you there. I think it's so wonderful. And Isabel, thanks for taking the journey and giving her this piece of Italy to share with us.
Oh, that was a treat.
Yeah, Mom, I reserve the right to defer questions to you as we go.
Okay.
All right, you're on standby. Just know. Thanks so much, Isabel.
Thanks,
Okay.
Mom.
All right, so now you have the idea. You said you've
Mm-hmm.
had the history. What does your research process look like? Do you just scour the internet? Are you in books? What does
Both,
it look
both. Yeah. So it was interesting, a little bit of a different approach with We Were the Lucky Ones. I began with the family story. So the family, my relatives were my protagonists, right? So I had to uncover the story of how they survived, which meant collecting a lot of oral histories and searching for records and places that might have any. Of course, this second book is the main characters are made up for me. So that was a new experience for me, equal parts exciting and terrifying to be in charge of the people and the plot. So I reversed it. So in We Were the Lucky Ones, I started with the family history and then sort of filled in the research, the backstory as I went, once I figured out where they were. But in this case, with One Good Thing, I started with the history of Italy. And so yes, the internet, books, I spent some time at the public library in New York City, in New York, where you can't actually take the books out. You have to go in there to the research rooms and specifically look up. And some of those are pretty dry, but they help give me the kind of the context and the backstory of what it was like in those war years in Italy. Listen to interviews with survivors. So back in the day, I had a couple relatives who were interviewed through the Shoah Foundation, through Steven Spielberg's initiative, and I received them as VHS tapes. And now they've all been digitalized, and you can watch my relatives. You can go in and watch you can watch any interview through the Shoah Foundation. So I could search by a city in Italy or any keyword that I wanted, and listen to some firsthand accounts, which was really special. I read an article about a woman. There was actually a book written about her called 100 Saturdays, I think, and a gentleman interviewed this Greek woman every Saturday for 100 Saturdays and wrote her story. And she was what inspired, she's part of the reason I was inspired to make Lily's best friend, Esty, Greek, and have her from the island of Rhodes, which is where this woman, Stella, was from. And then I read that she was speaking in New York, so I went to hear her speak, and just the details she was able to share about what it was like to be a little girl. And oh, somebody read it. Yeah, very cool book. What it was like to be a little girl growing up on that island, and her little cork-soled sandals and jumping into the water. And I kind of loved the idea of Esty being a little bit of a wild child, and kind of carrying that through her personality. So yeah, it's kind of a big mix of books and articles and interviews and online research. It's amazing what you can find, the rabbit holes you can go down.
Well, you said, Italy is not as well known as far
Mm,
as, the Holocaust and what happened during World War II with the Jewish communities. And even more so, I feel like with Greece. So that was, such an interesting mix into it, and having those paths cross was fascinating. But I want to move a little bit into you talking about not the made up characters, but the people that were true to history, and how you decided yes, I want to include this monk, this priest, this famous cyclist,
Mhm.
all those things, because I appreciated those points, and it made a difference, I feel like, in the book to really solidify.
Yeah, I think it was just, they were the people, then the events and that I stumbled across in my research that really moved me. And I felt if it moved me, perhaps it will move readers too to learn about their stories. And I love historical fiction as a reader. And I feel like anytime a story is rooted in truth, it adds so much credibility in my mind. So I I made up my main characters, but I will say pretty much all of the extended characters, people that Lily and Esty, who they come into contact with, who even if it's like a brief encounter, most of those characters are real people, and the events that are happening around them, whether it's a raid on a convent or the villa housing young Jewish orphaned children. They're all real events and things that happen. So I remember reading about that one in particular in the Villa Emma in this little town called Nonantola, where everybody knew everybody, and but they were housing this group of it's called De La Sem. They were trying to help these kids out, and they were housing these over 70 kids in a villa just in the heart of the town, and so people knew about them. And then when Germany invaded Italy and they were imminently going to arrive in this little town, they had to figure out what to do with them because there was no secret that they were 70 Jewish children in this villa, and that the Nazis were going to be there the next day. And so I read that they went out, this group, along with some volunteers, took the children in the middle of the night and went door to door in this tiny town, knocking on doors, asking the townspeople to take these children in. And every townsperson said yes, and they all took in a child, and these children, that's how they survived. And I was so moved by that. I was like, all right, well, there's going to be a cameo somewhere in the book about this middle of the night escape. um yeah, the cyclist, I loved his story. Gino Bartoli, if you
Yeah.
read the book, yeah, he was so, and never spoke about his heroics, just quietly went about shuttling false IDs across the country. And his story kind of came out later in life. So yeah, I loved weaving in those real people and places.
Well, Robin has a question in the chat box, and she says, are there backup copies of all these priceless oral histories? Her fear is that they could be deleted by, any regime or any group that doesn't want people to know this information.
That's a great question. I've never actually contemplated that, but I would hope that there are backup copies. Interestingly, my mom and I were just in DC. I was invited to speak at the Holocaust Museum during their Days of Remembrance, and we got to visit the Chappelle Center, which is where they house. So the museum itself is kind of a rotating small collection of artifacts, right? And the bulk of what they own lives 20 miles outside of DC in this incredibly fortified center called the Chappelle Center. And I can tell you that none of that is going anywhere. Like, it's their mission in life to preserve this. It's like bomb proof, and I'm sure data leak proof, but it's mostly artifacts, it's things, but also recordings on video and audio recordings too. And they've just the effort that they have taken to preserve. So I can speak to that. I don't know about all the other records in these oral histories, but I would hope that there are backups, and now that they're digitalized, that they're here forever.
When we spoke with Lauren Grodstein about her point of view with her historical fiction World War II story, she also mentioned the Holocaust Museum, and one of my dear friends was one of the curators at the museum at the time, and she was able to bring, because they actually hold one of the crates there, that there's like two in the world, right? And so it was, I do
Wow.
encourage everybody, if you haven't had a chance to go to DC to see that museum, please do so. It's an eye-opening, heartbreaking experience, but I think it's so important for us to remember. So thank you for bringing that up, Georgia.
Yeah.
It's just, you have so much history there, and it's hard history to go through. So you said you kind of go on it by what touched you, but it also has to be real for Lily,
Mhm.
for her path. So setting her up as a character, what were your goals for her? I'm assuming it's one, she had to be very insecure with herself in a certain way to give that effect. But tell us a little bit more about her.
Yeah, no, I wanted her to be very kind of ordinary, somebody that most of us could relate to, and somebody who is in that sort of coming of age moment in life where she's trying to figure out who she is and what her strengths are and what she wants to be. And for a while, she wants to be a journalist, and she's really good at it, but then is told she can't be because of the racial laws. And then things get very dangerous and turn quickly, right? At one point when the Germans come in. So she's um, yeah, she has to kind of decide what kind of person she wants to be, what kind of friend she wants to be. She has to draw courage from a place she doesn't know she has. And I think, she has Esty, who's sort of on the other end of that spectrum as far as um, bravery and bravado. Esty is like defiant to a fault. And she was kind of inspired by my great aunt Helena. So if you read We Were the Lucky Ones, she was the youngest of the family, but she was very much, very big in personality, very confident, lots of chutzpah, and ended up sort of being the orchestrator of the family's safety because she was able to use her false ID and get people in and out of hiding. And she was just wouldn't take no for an answer. And so I drew a lot of inspiration from her for Esty's character. And interestingly for Lily, of course, I put myself in her shoes over and over again and asked myself what I would do. And I was remembering how I felt at that age and all those choices and decisions she was having to make. And how do you do that? And how do you leave a convent with your best friend's child, and then how do you keep going door to door, and when do you decide is a safe place to stay, and when do you go, and all those decisions. And I put myself in her shoes. And as I was writing this book, we were also filming We Were the Lucky Ones, the series. And so I had this incredible experience of going over and being a part of that and getting to know the cast. Well, first of all, helping with the script writing. So I think that was so enlightening for me to see how an adaptation works, how you take 400 pages of written content and adapt it to 8 hours of visual content, and what that means for the scripts, and how spare you need to be with words, and the propulsiveness of each episode. But I got to know a lot of the actors, and one in particular I became very close with, and her name was Eva Filer, and she played Bella, my great uncle Jacob's wife. And as I was writing, I was kind of going back and forth between the series. We filmed it in Romania, and then coming here back to Connecticut and writing, I kept sort of visualizing Eva in Lily's role, and partly Eva in real life, and partly the way Eva portrayed Bella, which was this sort of had this a little bit of insecurity in the beginning, and you think she's kind of afraid, but then you realize she has this quiet confidence that just builds and builds throughout. And so that was really fun for me to have, not only just my own, sort of trusting my own intuition, but kind of leaning into Eva's ethos, who she is at her core. And also, fun fact, Eva reads the audio version of of One Good Thing. So
It was so good, by the way.
so good, right?
So good. I mean, a really great narrator, and I am a picky listener, so I do highly recommend it. And if you know of a listener that would enjoy a book, definitely recommend this audiobook because it was really, really good. Okay, so many questions after this comment. One is the relationship between Lily and Esty. Like, it seemed so solid and remained that way. But how did you get that on the page? Because I feel like that was also important for us as readers to understand how close they were and how far they would go for each other to make this story believable, which it absolutely was.
Yeah, I know. I think I just drew from my own friendships there. I think that's what I know how to do is look at the people around me and draw from them. And so for Lily and Esty, and I remember having a couple like slightly older friends who bridged that. We were very close, but I also really looked up to them. And so I loved that dynamic. And Lily's mom has died, so she doesn't have the mother figure in her life. And Esty is this like source of this incredibly confident woman who kind of helps guide Lily until she can't anymore, right? But I loved, I don't know, I thought so much about my own dearest friends and the women in my life who I adore and who I would do anything for and who would do anything for me. And so it just felt very natural to sort of base their friendship on sort of that feeling I have in my heart when I think about my friends.
It read very naturally. I will say it was, I mean, yes, we read about friendships quite a bit, but this one seemed so deep to me that it was, unbreakable. It was really a beautiful thing to experience. Athena has a question about characterization as well. And I know this is a little bit of crossover from the two books. So we'll
Great.
try not to give too many spoilers if they haven't read your first, but it
Okay.
says, she says, how did the characterization process change when writing original characters, Lily and Esty, compared to Addie and Helena? And their family from We Were the Lucky Ones, who were based on real people.
So I thought it was going to be a very different experience, writing characters made up from, my creative license. In the end, it turned out, so sort of like your question about the friendship, I ended up basing so many of my main characters on people I know and love. And again, I think that's just my comfort zone as a writer. I think, and I'm not really sure how to do it any other way. Perhaps someday I will venture into a different kind of character development. But for me, everybody in the book who's has a meaningful role really was based on important people in my life, and whether that was Massimo, Lily's father, and even the relationship between Lily and her father, and the way she thought about the relationship between her late mother and her father had this like quiet, really beautiful love, and that just kind of trickled down into Lily. That's what I grew up with in my home with my parents. Um, of course, I have two little boys at home, so Theo is sort of a little mashup of my two little guys, Wyatt and Ransom. And so really fun to write like their little mannerisms, their quirks, the type of questions they ask, the ways, that as a parent you have to be creative when they're bored or complaining. Um, Thomas was really fun for me to write because he was so based on my father and also a bit of my husband, who are both from the South and two of the sort of biggest hearted and kindest and most loving people that I know. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I ended up being happily surprised by how rewarding it was, even though I wasn't writing about real people. In this case, they weren't my relatives. I really did draw so much from people in my life. So it ended up being more of a similar process than I thought it was going to be.
Well, you also mentioned, screenwriting for the Hulu series. So how
Yeah.
did that change your writing process for this book? Because before you didn't have that, right? And this is a new
Yeah.
learned skill. So did that change the way you could picture, or maybe your choices of words, or how the count of words? I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what that did to you.
I think all of the above, it was such a learning curve for me. It was so fun to do this project. I got to do it with a dear friend, my friend Tommy Kale, who optioned it and directed and produced. He said, "Hey, we would love for you to be involved every step of the way." And so I was, and it was just incredible. So I took away so much. So just being able to imagine a scene, and how would you describe that without dialogue and without any words? How do you convey an emotion without words? How do you, um, when you do have dialogue, how do you say as much as you possibly can with as few words as you possibly can? I love, I'm pretty wordy. I love words. All my first drafts are quite long. And so for me, it was really helpful exercise in kind of less is more there. And then just, I don't know, I think it helped with a little bit of my pacing and the sort of Lily's journey is very much, she moves a lot, right? She's constantly on the go, at least once she leaves Florence. And they're on the go even before Florence when they're together. But that's sort of being the drumbeat of her journey, sort of, it felt cinematic to me in a way that felt like I could kind of relate to that in a different new way. So I don't know, I think it kind of just like settled in the experience, and I was so inspired by the screenwriters in this series. They were all phenomenal. I just couldn't believe how well they were able to bring this story to life um, in their scripts. So I think it was a mix of inspiration and then kind of, yeah, stealing some advice here and there on how to work characters and development and pacing and that kind of thing.
Well, this may be premature, but and you've probably been asked this before, but is there any word that about this book also being optioned? Because it has the same feel, right? It has your heart in it, but it's a totally different location and a different story, a different part of World War II. So we're
Mhm.
hoping.
I know it would be so fun. I have an amazing film agent who is pitching it as we speak, so we'll see.
Okay.
I know I'd be incredibly lucky to have it happen a second time, but I'm hoping if there's even an inkling of a chance that perhaps it's I see this one perhaps more as a film, like a feature film length rather than the series. I don't think you could have told the We Were the Lucky Ones story in 2 hours. There's too much breath, too many characters, too much happening. But this one feels like it's more focused and one storyline and really one country. And so I think, yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. I'm going to see my agent in a month or two, so I'm going to be out in LA and visit with her and get the scoop. But she's wonderful and she's so passionate about it, so we'll see.
Well, exciting. Keep us posted.
I
I
will,
know
yeah.
that it must have been a tight family, this Hulu series,
Mhm.
because you even had someone from the crew that worked, I think, makeup or costume or something, was like, hey, we need to get this back together again for this
Oh, she
book.
commented. That was the head of
Yes,
the whole hair and makeup department. She's like
yes.
the one of the best in the industry. And I know I saw her comment. Our whole team was just unbelievable. We all just got so close and it was everyone from the top of that with the top of the list of people who are there for the day to like the 12th person on the hair and makeup team or the costume team. And they would all come up to me at one point during the shoot and just say, this is so amazing. This is why we make television. Thank you for trusting us with your story. Like, we're going to do everything we can to do it justice. So I think everybody was just so moved to know it was a true story and I was on set and my mom came to the set and my kids came to the set and my relatives came from Israel and from France and from Switzerland. Like it was a really, I think, a different kind of thing. I was reminded often by people who have been through it a lot that it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah.
And that's not always the vibe or, the author doesn't get to be so involved or also be involved in such a or just feel so good about the material. I think everyone just assumes, oh, you must not be super happy with not after they watch the adaptation, but I think most people assume that the book is never the same. The adaptation is never the same as the book. And for me, I think we did it justice. I don't know. I'm so proud of it.
Well, you should be.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you should be. And this book as well. I hope it does end up on as a film, because I
Cool.
just can't wait to see, the changes in landscape. And like you said, that drumbeat journey of to different places, meeting the doctor when
Mhm.
Theo, sprains his ankle, that sort of thing. It just,
Mhm.
I don't know. I could really visualize, which is a testament to your words. So thank you.
Oh,
There
yeah.
were a couple of things that I wanted to ask about that you mentioned. One was the necklace, the almond tree blossom. Can you talk
Yeah.
about its significance and why you wanted that to be the symbol that she carried throughout that journey as she
Yeah.
went along?
I think the message I have to um, reread the actual passage, but I think the message that her mother told her when she got this was when you are feeling down and think of me and have hope. And I feel like that was so it came from Israel, and so there's a little bit of a nod to her own heritage. I think it was like her grandmother's maybe. And I don't know, I had just coming off the tails of researching my own history and Lily's story being really one of hope. That's such a big theme for her is finding the courage to keep going. And how do you do that? You allow yourself to have hope. And even in the darkest moments and in the most unfathomable circumstances, you can decide, do you choose hope? And so I just love that that was her talisman, and that's something that and her mom, it was a way for her to have her mom with her the whole time.
Another sentiment I think that came up with some of the characters, especially her father, Massimo, was also this idea that it will eventually end. It has
Mhm.
to. And so that thought process to keep them going seemed so important and sort of shaped her as she was deciding, can I keep doing this? Um,
Yeah.
and even eventually when she had the shame of thinking about leaving Theo. So can
Yes.
you talk a little bit about that, why that was an important theme and why you wanted Lily to have this moment of doubt for herself, for Theo, for, the whole situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that like this too shall pass is especially for her father who lived through the Great War, the First World War One. Um, you had to think that that's what was going through people's minds. Like, let's just keep our heads down. It's gonna pass. And I don't think anybody could have ever imagined or fathomed like the extent of what happened or what was about to happen. And so a lot of people ask me, why didn't they just leave why didn't your family just go? They could have left. And like, that was their home, right? Like Poland for them was their home, Italy for Italy. Like it's, if you ask, if somebody told you today, things are going to get really bad, you should leave home. Would you leave home? I mean, I probably wouldn't. And that moment in the hospital, I felt like Lily needed a pivotal moment to have that doubt and to ask herself, am I capable of caring for this child? Am I the best person? Would he be better off if I left him? I could travel faster. I could be a little safer in the way I'm traveling. I could deliver this parcel, which is, she's holding a secret parcel that she needs to get to Rome. And Theo would be in the hands of this, what seems like a kind doctor in this little town. Um, and so I kind of understood. I could see both sides of it. I could absolutely see her staying and her keeping, uh, her taking him with her, or her leaving him. But I mean, I knew she would eventually bring him, but I wanted her to have that moment. And I liked being able to weave in the title of the book in that passage too, where she's just thinking about how she kind of snaps out of it and has this moment where she looks around and everything's uncertain. She's lost touch with her father. She's lost touch with Esty. She has nobody, and she really, is truly on her own except for Theo, and he's the one good thing in her life. And she's like, I can't let go of that. I can't go back on my promise.
Was that always the title, or when did you realize that was going to be it?
Yeah, I give credit to my husband because we early days of talking about the book, we were sitting in my living room late one night and the kids were asleep and I was trying to hash out the plot with him, very, very early days. And I was kind of explaining it just like as I explained to you. And I want her to be on the run and I want her to kind of like have nobody. Like she has to only like, she's got to dig deep and figure out how she's going to get through despite all the darkness around her and the fact that everybody's gone missing in her life. But she's got this little boy, Theo, and he's the one good thing she has. And he stopped me actually right there and said, "Oh, one good thing, that would be a great title." And I said, "You're right." So credit goes to Robert Fahrenholt, my husband.
Way to go,
And
Robert.
it never changed after that. And somebody pointed out to me, like, we were the lucky ones, one good thing. It's sort of like a little bridge. And I hadn't really thought about that before, but I do like that. So
Well, I wondered too, with the idea of the bridge for the title, do you think your novels will ever cross paths a little bit? Like, do you see picking up? I know you had character traits that moved, but actual people that might cross paths in another novel. Like, for instance, I know a lot of people want Matilda to have a little bit more of a story, things like that. Do you
yeah.
see that universe mixing some?
I I I will never say never because I think it would be very cool. I actually had one person that was like, I kept reading and waiting for your family members to show up in this second book. I was like, oh yeah, no, totally different. Although I mean, I mentioned Monte Cassino, like there are a couple little
Yeah,
mentions,
yeah.
but and there are some Easter eggs in there too, like the making the IDs with the hard-boiled eggs. Like there's some overlaps, but not the people. Um, uh, Oddly, I had like 3 or 4 readers reach out to me, I think on whatever, Instagram or Facebook on the same day, and they said, please tell me there will be a sequel. And I hadn't thought about that before. And I screenshotted all of the messages and sent it to my agent. I was like, should I be thinking about this? And I'm thinking about it. And I could imagine it being perhaps like much further in the future. Maybe Theo is a young teenager and learning about his family history for the first time and wants to figure out whatever happened to his grandmother, or to his mother, sorry, to his parents and his whole side, his dad, his mom. And I could draw from my own experiences of being a teenager and kind of trying to look into that piece of my ancestry. So perhaps there's a way that that would sort of bring my story into his story, but I'm not sure about how the characters would overlap. But I am open to that, absolutely.
Oh,
Because
I think it would be fascinating because also you'd be bringing in a US experience, which you haven't done yet. And I don't know, like you lived in Virginia for a while with
yeah.
when you went to college and whatnot. So I don't know. I do think it would be an interesting take, but on your own time, obviously. Has your agent, have they already come to you and said what's next? Or are they already
So
like knocking at the door? Or do you get a little bit of downtime now?
I get a little bit of that. It's so funny. My agent texted me today. So we have a call tomorrow. And I'm just waiting. I've been waiting because I have a couple of side projects that I'm working on and I haven't had really, I'm very high level thinking about what's next. But I do have ideas. And once I start thinking about them, I get very excited about them. They're just way too early to really pinpoint one as the next one. But I have a feeling that might be what the call is about tomorrow.
Probably. I think we may have predicted the future. I will say there's some cheering in the crowd. Yes to
Okay.
three. Yes. And Theo, which someone called the heart and soul of One Good Thing. So there is a lot of love for him. And you know, a 3-year-old obviously is gonna change so much. So I think that that would be interesting to see how he does shape up and out. So
Yeah,
fascinating.
and my oldest is going to be 14 in November, so it's fun to draw from, kids at ages. I mean, they change so much. Like I had to kind of think back because was started writing the book when my youngest was 2 maybe, but he's 8 now. So to those early years to remember what it was like to have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. But it would be kind of cool to write about a teenager if I had a teenage boy at home. So
Absolutely. You can just draw right on it. He's gonna be like, Mom, I'm not
totally.
this book. Leave me alone. That's what a teenager.
Just like taking notes by his bedside.
Okay, be thinking of what questions you would like to ask Georgia. And as she may have figured out, because I believe she has seen one of my recordings, we get to do some rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Do you prefer research or writing?
Oh, can I say 50-50? I love them both so much. So
Okay,
much. I can't do yes, both. Sorry.
that's fine. That's fine. I'll take it. Are you more AM or PM?
AM.
What's your favorite part of Italy?
I recently discovered Puglia, but Amalfi, Ravello, there's no place like it. I don't know. Yeah.
That's what, well, Thomas was all about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me one of your favorite recipe cards. It doesn't have to be Italian, but like if you were, because you talked about the recipe box coming, if you were to
Yeah.
pull out one card, which one would you want to pull out today?
Hey, besides my mom's carbonara,
Obviously.
this might sound silly, but on rotation in my house, I make a banana muffin. So anytime a banana goes bad, I have a really healthy, sneaky healthy recipe. It's from Gwyneth Paltrow's book. It's a banana date muffin, and I veer from it now and then, and I'm always disappointed. So I hit that recipe every other week, and I throw a different fruit or different nut in there, and I feed the children their healthy treat.
Yum. That sounds so good. I kind of wanted
Yeah.
to try the roasted chestnuts after,
I
after
know.
right?
I know.
It sounded so good. Okay. This one's probably going to be easy, but the carbonara or the minestrone napolitano, because you mentioned both of them in detail.
Yes, carbonara.
Okay, if you had to leave immediately, what 3 things would you grab
Oh my
besides
God.
people and animals,
Besides people
obviously?
and animals.
Yeah,
Oh my
things.
gosh.
These are things.
Things. And I don't know if I would ever be able to retrieve any of them. Um, so I was about to hold up this book that my mom wrote. Do you guys heard of Storyworth? I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but a collection of memories from my mom that is priceless, that has all of her stories about Italy, also growing up and later in life, and my dad and all that. So that is something I keep by my desk here that I would grab. We donated a lot of my ancestral things to the Holocaust Museum, but I have a couple pieces. I have a bracelet that my great aunt Felicia gave me. I think I would take that as a piece of my ancestry. What else would I take? I'm really not so attached to things, but maybe maybe a first edition of my book.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, last one. This one maybe it's pretty thoughtful, but it also came up. What saying would you put on your headstone?
Oh, wow.
Because that was a part that was written, it was a thought
Yeah.
process. Do you know?
I have a theme that's just been in my head for a while now because I don't know, we're in an age state, the world is upside down, it feels like, right? Everything's um, difficult at the moment. And also, I have two young kids at home and we're balancing life and work and family. And so I love the words just keep going.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, thank you for sharing all that with us. It was very personal and we appreciate it. I want to open it up for anybody to ask a question to Georgia, and that even mom can ask a question if she'd
Yeah.
like. So,
Or ask a question to my mom.
or ask a question to Isabel.
Sorry, mom,
Absolutely.
volunteering you.
Uh, I'm going to go ahead and ask while we're waiting for someone to raise hands because I have a ton that I'm going to keep going with. Okay. So this is going to get, oh, Erica beat me to it. Erica, yeah, you did. I just saw it come
Getting
up.
in line behind you.
No, you want me to go first? I'm going to let you go
Yes.
first.
No, you go. I'll be next.
Okay. All right. So my question then, and this is kind of a serious one, is with the thought of people learning about the death camps, because for me, this was a part of history that we read, right? We learned about it in school, but Lily is learning about it from word of mouth. She's learning, other people are learning about it, maybe from an article or conversation. And so I wanted to talk about that and how that information came out and could actually be processed if it even could be. So I wanted to just have you rack your brain and tell us how, because that was an important part of this book, I think, for their realization, and just give us your input on that.
I thought so long and hard about how she would have learned about it, about how anybody would have learned. I thought about it with my family too. When those rumors start to trickle in, when do you believe them? And I think there was so much disbelief in the beginning until people escaped and told the stories firsthand. And then I think it became like, could that be? But then the scale of it, you can't really imagine. So I don't know. I thought so long and hard about how to relay that information to Lily, and in the end, it felt right to do it through this partisan group who would have been sort of in this underground world and delivering messages and sort of a little bit more in the know than perhaps just like a farmer in the countryside. Because I think at this point, throughout the war, Mussolini was basically in charge of the press. So I would be willing to bet that there were no articles until the very end about what was happening. So yeah, that was a really tough scene to write. And how would that feel to process not only the fact that humans can be that way, like what can happen when people stop seeing each other as human beings, and you know the outcome of that, but then for Lily to then translate that into, well, this is my best friend is, going to be affected or could be affected by this. She doesn't know yet. So yeah, that was a really big scene to write and a really big thing for her to process. And that was a really challenging one, just personally too, just because I'm always, I kind of like try to get into the shoes and hearts and minds of my characters, and in doing so you just have to take on what they're taking on, and so that was a really hard one.
Well, I mean, when Lily's having a hard time, and just like everybody, and that her own countrymen are turning in other Italians, and how can that happen? And then it goes beyond with the death camps, and then even beyond when she realizes that Esty has been taken to Auschwitz. It's just it's sickening. And are you able to shut it off when, because that would be very hard emotionally to write something like that. Obviously you have your boys and your dog, and I mean, but does that sort of follow you along until the book is done, or are you able
Yeah.
to compartmentalize a little bit so that you can move forward?
I have learned to compartmentalize, and I learned that I can't just close my computer and go straight home. I pad a walk or a little meditation or just a 5 or 10 minutes of what scrolling, anything but just going straight from like time traveling, right? Going straight from that scene or wherever my head was with the writing to it's too jarring of a transition, and I don't want to bring that energy back into my house. And granted, I mean, I always balance my writing, the dark with the light. So there are plenty of days where I come home just fine. But even still, like your brain in that kind of mode, I do like to give myself some padding. But that was also so evident in the making of the We Were the Lucky Ones series, where we had to shoot some of these horrific scenes, and I worried so much about them. So it was gonna just, I was like, people are not going to survive these scenes, and they're not even real, but they are real because they're depicting real things. And we just broke it down, into increments. And that's sort of what I do in my writing too. In a scene where it's just really hard to just break it down into one like beat at a time. And you just get through it. And then you take a little break and you go for a walk. You look at the sun, you look at the sky, and then you come back to the next beat. And you kind of just, when you break it down that way and then take little breaks in between, which is what we did for those really hard scenes shooting in Romania too. It just makes it so much more manageable.
Well, I think I've mentioned this in maybe one other chat, is that Mr. Rogers moment where he has to come in, take off, put on new clothes, change into a slipper. It's almost like you do have to change to be
Yeah.
able to, now your mom, your wife, and you can separate that out. So, oh, now I'm going to cry for PPS, but let's keep
I
going.
know.
Erica, guess what?
I
You
will make this way more light.
okay? See, that's what she was waiting for.
Okay, so if there would be a book three, let's say, and you had to choose another like time period, what might that be? What else intrigues you? So that mom can go on another like,
Yeah. Where are we gonna go
vacay,
next?
right? Where would you take mom?
I'm thinking Fiji, modern day.
Yeah, right?
Um, no,
Beach
I
read. From World War II concentration camps to
yeah.
Fijian beach read. Okay.
Totally. No, I really am drawn to that era. So I'm I'm open to anything at this point. And to be honest, the thing I've done the most research so far on is a passion of mine, which is horses. So I'm researching the sort
Mm.
of untold stories of horses. And right now I am looking World War II era, and there's some really fascinating ones. I think the one that like caught my eye and heart, the most recently was just set in Iceland. So perhaps, places again that people don't really associate with World War II.
Yeah.
But that said, that if it's horses, it could be across um, yeah, any time period really. So I'm really open to anything. I think it'd be interesting to go further back. I think that the more modern you get, it's as a writer, I have never written where they were like, it was easy to make a phone call or send a text message. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's a huge part of my writing and my plots right now, are people can't find each other. And I think that adds so much. And I don't know, World War II is just it's such a robust era, and it's not that far away, for me, third generation, and there's so many untold stories that I really am still drawn to it. I'm not sure if it'll 100% be Holocaust related, the next one, but perhaps I'll stick with the era and maybe take that sort of equine angle. We'll see.
Great
Very
question,
cool.
Erica.
As a follow-up to that, sorry.
Okay.
So I was like super blessed to be able to get an arc of this current
Oh,
book. I know.
amazing.
Amazing. Penguin like sent me one. So like how do we make sure to get book number three, right? Like ahead of time. What is do you like, how do we do this?
Just
Because
email me. I'll
obviously,
make sure you get one. Yeah.
like, because, whether it's Fiji or Iceland, like, we all
Yay.
want to, we're
Oh,
super fans. We're super fans here.
thank
So
you. No, please take me up. Like, just my email is on my website. Just
fabulous.
send
Your
me a
writing
note, and
is
thank you. I
like
appreciate that.
phenomenal. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank
Thanks
you.
for that, Erica. Appreciate that. Great question. And I will say, speaking of equine stories, have you read Geraldine Brooks' Horse from?
It's my favorite. I mean, I love it
Oh, that
so
Civil
much.
War. Yeah, and then flashing up to the Smithsonian. Oh, it's really, really good.
I was like, that's the one I wanted to write.
Like,
Like,
wait.
that's exactly the book I would have written. I mean, she's phenomenal. She's wonderful. And that was one of my favorite books of whatever year that came out,
Yeah.
22, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, we can't wait to see what you do with it. And it will also be one of our favorites. So get ready, crew. Jessica, are you ready to ask your question? Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, good evening. I just first I want to say I really, really enjoyed this book so much. I've read quite a bit of, Holocaust historical fiction. I'm Jewish, and just there's a lot out there. And this was by far, an excellent one, and just appreciate that. And if anybody else is interested in other excellent Holocaust historical fiction, Mitch Albom's The Little Liar and Anne Burress' The Postcard are also two I would highly recommend. But my I guess part of getting to my question, but I've been kind of following you since you were on Sarah's Bookshelves Live as her first podcast guest.
That one. Nice.
Yeah, I'm a regular listener, so I feel like I've, been following you and your works for a while. I feel like I know the answer to this question, but I'm just curious, was there ever a point in your process where you had an idea that maybe Esty would get reunited with Lily for a different outcome to the story? Maybe this is me and my Pollyanna-ish,
No, I am the
wanting a
same.
happier ending. I was just so crushed, and I get it. I mean, I'm sure it was very, very more realistic outcome, unfortunately, to have them not be reunited. But the whole way, I was just so hopeful that there'd be something
I know.
that
I
happened.
know. I know. I really, of course I thought about it, and it is against my DNA to not create that happy ending, because I felt like, and especially with having written We Were the Lucky Ones, I mean, spoiler, the title gives it away. The family survived intact, which is just unheard of. And I think partly because of that, I wrote this story about the family that was a complete statistical anomaly that shouldn't have survived, that did survive. Whereas the much more common story of the Holocaust was maybe one survivor from a family, maybe two, and the uncertainty of like, I don't actually even know what happened. I mean, we just had a family member reach out like a couple weeks ago who watched my series and heard at the very last Seder when they were saying the names of deceased relatives, one of their family names was mentioned, one of their grandmother's names was mentioned, and we've since reconnected. And anyways, I just think it, but they went all these years without knowing that they had family out there. So I think in a sense, it was my way of honoring sort of that greater story and more common story of the Holocaust. But I kept Massimo.
Well, and I
I couldn't.
appreciate Thomas. That to me
And
was like
Thomas,
the life
yeah,
end for her, if she couldn't get her reunion with Esty,
yeah,
her first love in a way that
absolutely.
she found Thomas. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Sorry. I know.
No,
And I
no,
feel like
I mean,
it's
I love the book. I really enjoyed it. So
like thank you. I know it was really tough. It was a really tough decision. And then but yeah, I think it was um also part of Lily's journey is knowing that she could go on without her best friend, like learning that she doesn't actually need her in order to keep going, right?
Well, great question, Jessica. And I just wanted to say I agree with her in that I too kept that hope up, but I also think that that's kudos to you and your writing, because a lot of times we were already making assumptions, right? But here it's just, you kept us along that journey for her, and it was really beautiful. So thank you for that. All right, guys, I can't believe we're already to the end of our conversation. I have so many questions I didn't get to ask,
so
but
fast.
it's been a wonderful, wonderful discussion tonight. Thank you, Georgia, so much for your kind soul whose book orbit intersected with our author chat group. Even though it could be scary, you created a world that was new and unfamiliar on the page. So I want us all to raise a glass or our books and say chin chin. Are y'all ready? 1, 2, 3, chin chin. So it was so wonderful, this book. It was such a fast read. So I really encourage everybody to try to get this book in other readers' hands, get those reviews up for her, any sort of social media that you can promote it on. This book needs to land in more hands. So thank you, Mom Isabel, for taking that journey thank you for meeting in Italy. First of all, I'm just going to say that. I'm going to also say thank you for taking that journey with her. And I will say a future thank you for that carbonara recipe that we're all looking forward to.
Got it.
I will say, though, in 2 weeks, we're going to be in conversation with Allegra Goodman for her New York Times. She's the New York Times bestseller of Sam, but we're here to talk to her about her Reese Witherspoon book club pick. Isola, which I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. I'll check it. I haven't listened to the audiobook. I'm going to always check it. But this is an epic saga about a French noblewoman deserted on an island where her survival depends on the power of her faith and love. Jodi Picoult says it's a shocking story made all the more stunning by the fact that it has roots in true history. Isola is an immersive journey through the eyes of Marguerite de Roque, who defines what makes a woman of worth and what is the difference between having a life and truly living. So there's definitely time for you to get that book read and to join. As always, these are free and open, so invite your book clubs and your friends. If you're watching this as a recording, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, LB the Lover of Books. Leave a comment. Let us know what your favorite part of this chat was, or your favorite part of the book. Authors love getting reached out to. But I'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Anything else you wanted to say, Georgia, before we sign off?
I just want to say you're so lovely. You are an amazing host and you ask incredible questions, as did the audience. So thank you so much to all of you for being here. Thank you, Mom, for being my constant wing woman. And no, really, this was such a fun, I can't believe it's been an hour. This went by so fast.
I looked up and I was like, wait, no, say it isn't so. But thank y'all so much for a wonderful night. Exactly. Great questions. And I'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Thanks, y'all. Good night, everybody.
Bye.